Hello, welcome. Come join me for some coffee. All right, so I realized after the last video, I really can't do videos before I've had coffee in the morning. I am so sorry. I think I it was painful like editing that video because I was so I was making myself tired watching it. But also I only got so much time to make videos, so I got to make them when I can and get the stuff to you. And I thought that coffee was worth just powering through it and getting the video to you, even if I looked half dead. So, oh, all right. So I got another coffee for you today. I also think these videos can probably be shorter, so we'll see how this happens. What do we have? This is a really special coffee. Thoughts and process. This is roasted by a good fan of Coffee Lovers Radio and the magazine, and I think the YouTube a little bit. He's just a guy who's really passionate about coffee and has enjoyed roasting it for himself and has started to package and sell it. And for Jesse and I over at Coffee Lovers Radio, he has been sending us samples as he's been going through his roasting process, and he's really come a long way with the coffee. And what he's roasting now is quite delicious, and I think stands toe to toe with a lot of really good coffee roasters out there. I've certainly been enjoying the coffee deeply. That's not his day job. By day, he delivers our mail. So this past year, especially over the holidays, I think was a real challenge for him for a lot of reasons, as I'm sure you can imagine. But he still has made some really delicious coffee in the meantime. And I think that brings him a lot of satisfaction. His name's Mateo. You can go read a little bit on the website, Thoughts and Process. I'll link below. Before I even get into talking about the coffee, if you're looking to try something different, something new, just get a bag. It's good. It's delicious. Okay, what I have right now is it's a Rwanda Beliza. I actually wrote about a little bit about this in the most recent issue of the magazine. Not in the magazine, but in the email series. I always do a little email series whenever I publish an issue. Just wrote a little bit about this coffee because it's quite delicious, and it's one of those coffees where you can sit down and just enjoy the coffee every day. But also, if you take a moment, you realize so this is sourced from a cooperative of a collection of cooperatives and farmers, something like over 350 farms or something like that. Thousands of people involved in just like the farming and production of this coffee, and then of course it ends up in the hands of a UPS guy who's passionate about coffee in the evenings, and he roasts it, and it's really delicious, and I'm enjoying it. I don't know. That whole thing is kind of like it's a wildly enjoyable aspect of coffee to me, which I know is not typical. That's not the way most people approach their coffee. I think most people they want something tasty, they want something delicious, but it's just another piece of their day, which is fine. Uh, I've obviously have taken this to a level of obsession that's not reasonable for most people, but I think one of the things I do love about coffee is that even if you aren't super obsessed about it, you can still appreciate it. So, very quickly about the Rwanda, because I obviously have brewed some. He also sent me, and I haven't even opened this yet. I saved this for this video. This is a Congo, and it's a little, let me throw it on the ground. It's a little more darkly roasted. So the Rwanda, I think is by comparison a little more lightly roasted. And I think what I had pinpointed with the tastes on this is it's actually kind of mellowed out a little bit. It's getting on the aged side technically. It's actually, as I record this, over a month since roast, and it's still vibrant and tasty, which I always find delightful in a coffee. Melon like smoothness has been a feature throughout. I think what I was finding a couple weeks ago, for like during the prime of the coffee, was a very kind of also like pineapple sort of sweetness, which was really delicious. So melon and pineapple and sweet basil, which I'm not getting in the brew today, am I? Hang on. Do we have the sweet basil? Kind of do on the aroma. This is a bright floral aroma, planty aromatic. Maybe a little bit of the sweet basil, but I think that's kind of mellowed out as well. I'd meant to get to recording this sooner, but it's still very delicious. Rwanda, Belize. On the taste here, green tea, melon, and tamarind. I actually don't get green tea, not in like the typical green tea sense. I think that came across to me in the kind of sweet basil, and my assumption of this is that the way that Matteo roasted this is he worked on developing, even though it's a light roast, he worked on developing the sugars a little bit more, which brought about more sweetness in the cup, which I think is really delicious and a great choice. Melon is one of the tastes described. Tamarind as well, which maybe kind of the tart brightness of it is tamarind. I could see that, but like I said, I was picking up more of a definitely melon, but there was a pineapple aspect to it, which is maybe where you get if you make tamarind sweeter, and sweet basil, or like sweet basil tea maybe, which is perhaps what the green tea in here is. It's just more of a sweet basil to me. Okay, that's the Rwanda Belize. I think he still has it available, so I'll link to that below. I want to try this Congo. What I'm going to do is pause this, brew it, and come back to you and give you some thoughts on that coffee as well. That coffee, which is on the floor right now. So I'll be right back. All right, we're back. So I decided to do something a little fun. This is the Congo Organic North Kivu Gorilla Blend. I probably should have looked up a little bit more about this coffee, but as far as enjoying it, I had a little back and forth with Matteo when he sent the coffee, and he suggested that I brew it at a lower temperature because that would bring out more of the brown sugar and chocolate notes, which are like kind of the main tasting notes. He also said if I brewed it at a higher temperature, when it cooled, it would taste of tropical fruits. So I ended up with, he just sent me a little sample of it, about 40 grams. So I did two 20-gram brews at about 16 to 1. So I brewed 320 grams. I thought it would be fun to try them both and see what it's like. So this will just be a fun comparison. I did an initial brew hot. I usually water temperature. If I'm doing it on the stove, I'd usually boil and then brew. I've got the fellow electric kettle, so I actually set it to 207 because it gets the water pretty hot up there. By the time you pour, it's cooled down a couple degrees once it's kind of in the slurry, and that works out pretty perfectly for most light roasted coffees. And then for the next brew, everything the same except the water temperature at 198. So it'll be interesting to see what the difference is. Once you start getting below 200 in a coffee, and it's a really good thing if you're brewing like darker roasted coffee. Darker roasted coffee is more soluble. This is not a dark roast; it's more of a medium. So it's more roasted than the Rwanda that I was tasting originally. So it'll be interesting to see the difference between the brews, the way I would normally brew coffee, and then versus brewing at a lower temperature. Now, the way I set this up, the regular sort of hotter brew is back here, and it's been cooling off a little bit. So I think it's not going to be a direct one-to-one comparison, but I really wanted to get to those, as Matteo said, as it cools, more tropical flavors coming out. Now, one thing I did notice while brewing this is that the coffee itself smelled really of tropical fruit on the whole bean. Very fruity smelling, not like those fruit smells that you get from like a naturally processed Ethiopia, for example, where you're like, oh, that's wild blueberries, or that's strawberries or something like that. This is actually, well, it looks like this is a combination of washed and natural dried process, so that makes sense that there's some more fruit notes. But it was like tropical fruit is the best. It's the best descriptor of that. And I know part of the reason for that is that Matteo put that idea in my head by saying it. That's just like, I'm saying these things about these coffees, so if you get them, they're going to be in your head too. But the coffee itself, the ground and the whole bean had that aroma. The ground also more pungent with it. Probably, I did get whiffs of fresh green coffee aroma, which won't mean anything to you unless you've smelled fresh green coffee. If you get a chance to do that, I highly recommend it. Okay, so first up here, this is, so again, they're both Congo. This is brewed at 198 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 to 1 ratio, both of them on the clay to wave. Yeah, what immediately hits me is roasted nuts, chocolate, dark chocolate. Can get some brown sugar in there for sure. The thing that hit me immediately was like roasted nuts and dark chocolate. There's something like in the background that's not quite showing itself, and that might be the fruitiness. Oh, there's some brown sugar. Interesting how that, because kind of what happened there is I'm like sipping and taking a lot of liquid and flavor in, but then I don't know if this is actually what's happening. This is how I picture it in my mouth, is taste kind of like dissipating and spreading out, and then whoop, suddenly I can see and taste brown sugar. There is kind of a juicy, fruity quality to it without tasting like fruit. That's nice. Okay, let's try. You know what? Pardon me 1 second. Okay, I had to have some water to kind of try to clear my palate. This is the brewed hotter version, which has been sitting around for a little longer. I wonder if they smell different. It's hard to tell. The aroma of the brewed coffee is subtle. I want to say I smell more nuttiness on this. Of course, the shape of these two is going to affect this, so it's not quite a fair comparison. But I want to say I smell more nuttiness on the cooler brewed coffee. This one being brewed at 207 degrees. That one that I just tasted at 198. Wow. I don't get the nuttiness up front. The chocolate is more subtle. Very interesting. More of the chocolate is smoother. Wow. It's actually wildly different. I know I'm going to be tossing back and forth, so this is going to muddy my experience, but yeah, this is like richer and sweeter tasting, I think. And the hotter brewed comes off as more of a light, like I'm starting to see that fruitiness. The fruitiness, which I feel is like in the background of the cooler brewed coffee. This is very interesting. I think if you put these side by side, just blind, you would think they're completely different coffees. You could suspect that there is a similarity between them, for sure, but the experience is vastly different. Interestingly enough, this is very interesting to me. Okay, hold on. Vanilla just suddenly popped out. Again, I'm kind of mixing the two, so it's a little hard to track. But interestingly enough, one of the things I noticed on this, I could taste the roastiness on the cooler brewed coffee, roast, because it was that like kind of roasted nut experience, and then rich chocolate right there up front, very clear. Not in this one, not in the hotter brewed version. Again, I know I'm jumping back and forth, but to refresh your memory and bring it all back. This is the same coffee. It's all from this little bag. I've just split it in half, and I brewed this first one at 207 degrees. I brewed the second one at 198. That's the only difference between these two, creating a very different experience. And both excellent. I think that's also a delight to find here, is that brewing them both ways has created an enjoyable experience. Oh, that's very fun. Yeah, it kind of makes me want to play around with temperature in my brewing a lot more. Anyway, so that has been Thoughts and Process coffee. I'm going to link to Thoughts and Process below. Last I checked, you can still get the Rwanda, which is the coffee I tasted at the beginning of the video, and the Congo, which is what I just tasted. Both really good, very different coffee experiences, both delicious. I highly recommend you get them. I have been brewing on a Kalita Wave, but I think just judging by the quality of these coffees, you could brew them on anything, and they would be very good. In fact, I think I'm probably going to try some espresso with this soon, this Rwanda, because I have some left, and see how that comes out. Grab yourself a bag, try it out. I think if you're the kind of person who leans more towards medium coffees, if you're used to kind of a darker, more roasty taste, then I would start with Congo, because the Rwanda is a light roast. It does have like those tastes of melon and tea are much lighter. And if you're used to some like richer, more roasty body experience of coffee, it can be hard to jump to this kind of thing. But if you do like light roasted coffees, the Rwanda, very good. All right, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you give it a thumbs up. That'll let me know that you like these kinds of things and I can keep doing this. Otherwise, if you have any questions, please comment below, and I'll see you in the next one.